This is the fourth part of my homily series on forgiveness. Forgiveness, it's good for the soul. Last week we took a short break because of the novena for St. Joseph. Hopefully you went online and listened to or read the homily that I gave for that Sunday at 10:30. If not, well, I'll give you a brief recap. The first part of the series was on forgiving ourselves and some tips on how we forgive ourselves. The second part of the series was forgiving others, and we had that beautiful story of Immaculée and how to forgive others and why we should forgive others. The third part was what forgiveness is not. So forgiveness is not forgetting, for instance. I said that came from Don Quixote, did not come from the Bible, okay? Forgiveness is not reconciliation. A lot of times people get confused, like, I can't forgive him because I can't come near him. No, well, you still can forgive him and not go near him. Forgiveness is the first part of reconciliation, but forgiveness and reconciliation is not the same thing. You can forgive without reconciling. And ultimately, what is forgiveness? Forgiveness is ultimately love. It's going to the heart of love. And today, we will hear about how good it is for our souls and for our life, for us to enter the very heart of God's forgiveness for us. To talk about this, I want to share first with you a story, a powerful story about Brother Alex. Brother Alex lived around the turn of the century, was a Capuchin monk, lived in the Italian countryside. And Brother Alex was known for his peacefulness and kind of his holiness. He was known for being a man of prayer and asceticism, lived a simple life. He was doing all sorts of gardening things for the Capuchin brothers there. But Brother Alex wasn't always a Capuchin. About 9 years before his death in 1970, he was about 80 years old, he wrote a confession and told his story. It was nothing new. Actually, it was well known in the public. It's a beautiful story. It's a story of forgiveness. He was a monk in the monastery. He was a brother because he received great forgiveness. You see, Brother Alex grew up in the countryside from a dysfunctional family. Alcoholism and mental illness was part of his family life, and they moved from place to place and just looked for ways to have odd jobs, etc. He was a bright young man. He loved to read. He read a lot. He was one of the few people in the area that would read. And he lived taking care of this property. He lived in the same house as this young family. They were all poor, very poor, so they took care of each other. One of the things that Alessandro really liked to read was lurid crime stories, and he loved to read about sexual adventures in scandalous magazines. It had all sorts of pornographic images of women. Who knows why he was so captivated by these? Was it an escape for him from the hardship of family life? Was it a growing addiction? He would say later on that his compulsion to read these pornographic things led him to do the unthinkable. I wonder what he would say about many of us and what we look at when no one else is watching. One day Alessandro decided to take something that wasn't his. See, in the same house that he lived in, a girl of 11 years old lived. They knew each other fairly well. And Alessandro decided that he would take what was not his and would rape her. Sadly, we know actually probably a quarter or more people in the United States have had this similar experience that this little girl, Maria, experienced. It's getting worse. Maria was a woman of great faith. You know her, Maria Goretti, Saint Maria Goretti. And great virtue. She was willing to die before she would give up her virginity. And she kept on telling Alessandro, no, don't do it, don't do it. I'm not going to allow you to do it. No. God does not want this. This is a mortal sin. Alessandro threatened and said, I will kill you if you don't. She goes, I'm not going to allow you to do what you want to with me. Alessandro took a pick and brutally stabbed her 11 times. She crawled towards the door and he stabbed her 3 more and then ran out of the house. She was still alive when she was found. A priest came to give her last rites. And as she received the care of this priest, she said to the priest, I want you to know I forgive Alessandro. And then she died. Alessandro was captured and went to jail. At age 20, Italian law did not allow him to be sentenced for life for the horrible crime that he did. So he was sentenced for 30 years. That's how long they would sentence him as what they saw was a minor under the age of 21. He was angry with himself. He hated himself, a despicable prisoner. And that all changed because he had a vision, and that vision was of Saint Maria Goretti coming to him and telling him, Alessandro, I have forgiven you. Such was the power of that moment that his life completely changed. He became a model prisoner, was released early. One of the first things he did is he went back to the village where the Gorettis lived, and he asked Assunta, the mom of Maria, to forgive him. Assunta is quoted as saying, if Maria has forgiven you, how can I not do the same? Alessandro, I forgive you. The next morning, the two of them were seen walking arm in arm to the church, and they knelt at the altar rail together as they received the Holy Sacrament. From there on out, he was known as Uncle Alessandro to the Goretti family. After a couple years, he decided to enter a monastery, and that's where we find him at the end of his life as he gives his confession. Long before he had testified to the beatification of Maria Goretti, his own experience and what he did to her, and how she came and visited him, and through her forgiveness and the forgiveness of God, his life was completely changed. In the other parts of this forgiveness series, we talked about what we can do. We can forgive ourselves. We can forgive others. This is all about, Alessandro's story is all about how we can allow others to forgive us, how we can allow God to forgive us. If anything, his story tells us it's that if we want a life of peace and goodness, if we're tired of our self-accusations and hatreds, if we're tired of all that, if we want the joyous life of being Christian, then we need to let go and allow God to forgive us. So many of us resist. We resist going to him in prayer and saying daily, God, I'm sorry, will you forgive me? We're like Adam and Eve after the original sin. We hide from God. We don't want to see him face to face because we're afraid if what we bring to him in the light will cause him to get upset with us. Or better, or more than that, we're afraid of acknowledging our own brokenness and our own ugliness and what we have done in our life. And Jesus came so that we might have life. He said, I will go on that tree, on that pole, that cross, and I will be lifted up for all to see. That's what we heard in the gospel. Why? So that we can be forgiven. So that we can have the clean heart that we heard about in the responsorial song. That's Jesus' mission, always, is to come and bring forgiveness. That's what we heard in that first reading too. That God would have a new covenant with us, and that covenant would bring about forgiveness. You see, forgiveness in God's mind is the very heart of love. And we allow God to forgive us either in our own private prayer or certainly, absolutely within the sacrament of reconciliation. When we allow God to do that in our lives, we enter the heart of love, his love for us. When we're stubborn and we say, no, I don't need it. I can do this my own way. I can handle my own sin. I can take care of it. We're saying no to God's love. What Alessandro teaches us today is that we need to allow God to forgive us and allow others to forgive us. The good news for you guys is we have lots of opportunity this week coming up. Monday we have a penance service with a bunch of priests. So if you don't like me, you can go to another priest. Wednesday we have confessions. Friday we have confessions. Saturday we have confessions. We'll probably have about 10 to 12 hours worth of confessions this week. This is all to provide you this opportunity to enter the heart of God and to know how much he loves you.